So today what we're talking about, Alfonso, what was your question?
Yeah, you're going to dig it all, right?
Yes. So what I was talking about was we're solving quadratic equations using square root. So now we are using that square root thing. What is a square root? It's a radical with an index of 2. Okay, so we're using that to our advantage now to solve quadratics. Okay. The main thing that I want you guys to focus on is this equation right here. Go ahead and underline it, highlight it in your notes. It's ax squared plus c equals 0. It looks very similar to standard form of a quadratic, but what's missing? B. Your bx term, we'll call it MIA. Do you guys know what MIA means? Missing in action, not Miami in this case, okay? No. So it's missing in action, it's Mia, okay? And then we're going to say that B is actually equal to 0, so it disappears, okay? Christian? Oh. Just go back home. Okay. So we can go ahead, we can solve these equations, okay, by subtracting c to both sides and then dividing by that a value, okay? So we're going to go ahead and turn this equation into something that looks like this. You also need to highlight this one, where it's x squared equals some number, and we're going to call that number a d, okay, a d value. Now, depending on that value, okay, we're going to get multiple different solutions, okay? So the first one that I want to show you is when your d values are greater than 0. What numbers are bigger than 0? What kind of numbers are bigger than 0?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. What do all those numbers have in common? Positive. They're positive. So put a plus sign up here. If your d value is positive, when we get x squared equals d, it's going to have 2 real solutions. 2 real solutions. And I'll explain why in a moment. When that value is 0, if that d value is 0, exactly 0, not a positive number, not a negative number, but 0, then your d value or your x value has 1 real solution, which is x equals 0. Yes, Matthew?
It's like a fraction, like a decimal.
So it would depend on it, whether it's positive or negative, okay? Matthew, do you have headphones in right now? Thank you. What values are less than 0? The negative values. So when d is negative, okay, you're going to get no real solutions. And I will explain why we get these values when we get to those types of problems, okay? Right now, are there any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Okay. It sounds kind of complicated, but it's not that bad. Let's take a look at an example. Let's take a look at letter A. So guys, for these types of problems, do you guys agree there's no bx term? Okay, we can only use this strategy when there's no bx term. Alec, what's up? Yeah. Is that better? Okay, so guys, write down our steps. There's only 2 steps. Number 1, we have to isolate our x squared term. We can do that right now. What would you guys do to isolate your x squared term right now? Natalie?
Add 27 to the other side.
Perfect. Add 27. What do I get when I add 27, Natalie?
27.
And on the left side?
Oh, 0.
No, the whole thing is 0?
No, like it goes away.
This goes away, but what do we still have?
The negative.
3x squared
Oh, wait.
equals, there you go. And then what did you say the right side was?
27.
27. Okay? Good, David. Divide by 3 to both sides. X squared equals 9. Hold on. So, have we isolated our x squared? Okay, so put a check mark next to it. Step 1 is complete. Step 2, woohoo! Okay, step 2 is something, we have not seen this before, so I need your focus right now. Step 2 is where we do something called take the square root of both sides. Hold on. And I need you to draw a little symbol that's a plus sign on top of a minus sign, the plus minus symbol. Have we seen that before?
Yeah.
I think I've gone over that, right? Okay. So we are going to take the square root of the left-hand side and the right-hand side, and this is going to get a plus or minus on the right-hand side. This is what we call taking the square root of both sides is. What is the square root of x squared? So we have just x now on the left equals plus or minus. Does anyone know the square root of 9?
3.
It's 3. That is my answer. Now let's talk about it. Why is the square root of 9 both positive 3 and negative 3? Christian?
Because times -3 times -3, it'll still give you positive.
Excellent. 3 times 3 gives me 9, and -3 times -3 gives me 9. So we're going to get two solutions here. When this 9, highlight it, when it's positive, okay, you will always get two solutions. When it's 0, you're going to get one solution. When it's negative, you're going to get no real solution. Matthew?
What if the answer is like the one on the right? It doesn't have a square root, it's 8 or something. Right?
If it was 8, then we would leave it as the square root of 8 and simplify it. Do you remember how we simplified radicals in 9.1? Okay, that's all we would do. We're going to see that at the very end, okay? Yeah, go ahead. What other questions, guys? These are good. Keep them coming. Yeah.
You're saying that x can be both negative or positive?
Correct.
What would happen if we applied a negative 3 to the original problem?
Yeah, let's try it. So Alec is saying, would it work with the original problem if we plugged in -3? Well, let's try it. So let's plug in -3 here. So it's going to be 3 times -3 squared minus 27 equals 0. Alec, what should I do first in this based on order of operations?
Wait, why is there parentheses at the top?
Because we're plugging in for x, right?
Wait.
Mm-hmm.
Just 3 times 9 minus 27.
So this is going to be 3 times 9 because -3 squared is
Oh, I forgot that there's parentheses.
minus 27 equals 0. Okay, what's 3 times 9? So 27 minus 27, is that equal to 0? Boom, it works. You see that? And don't forget to always plug in for x with parentheses, okay? Good questions. Guys, are there more? What other questions do we have for this first example? Yeah, Kyra? Sure. Set a timer, please. All right, guys, let's take a look. We're going to do C and we're going to do B. What would you do in letter C? Gabe?
Subtract 11 on both sides.
Excellent. Subtract 11. We're going to get -5x squared equals what, Gabe?
5.
5. What would you do after that?
Oh, I don't know. I just got here. That's it.
Oh, you just got here?
That's the idea I got the copy from.
Well, what would you do? Well, I mean,
You put it over 5, -5.
yeah, so divide by -5. Yep.
And then you get x squared equals -1.
Okay. Hold on. We can stop at this point. Does anyone know why? Andrea?
This is no solution because of the negative.
It's no solution?
Yeah, that's not what you said, I think.
You are correct. But guys, we're not going to write just no solution. We have to write what?
X is less.
No real solution, okay? Now, the reason we have to write no real solution is because in Algebra 2, you're going to learn about something called an imaginary number, okay? And it's not technically imaginary, right? Because, like, it's part of your answer, but we do not touch on those in Algebra 1. But when we're talking about quadratics, that's x squared equations, you have to write no real solution, okay? Because there are imaginary solutions to this problem, okay? Imaginary.
Right.
Yes, Mia.
This is only if it's negative?
Correct. If this number on the right-hand side becomes negative, okay, then you get no real solution. Now, some of you aren't going to notice that there's no real solution until you take the square root. Let's take the square root. Let's say we didn't notice it right away, right? And you would write plus or minus the square root of -1. Why do I get stuck here? Natalie?
No matter what you do, if you square a negative by a negative, it's always going to give you a positive.
Correct. There is no square root of any negative number. If this index is even, which it is, it's 2, you can't have a negative underneath your radical, so there's no real solution, okay? So you can stop when you get -1 on the right-hand side, or you can stop when you take the square root of both sides. Christian, what's up?
What if like your exponent's like an odd number, like 3 or 5?
Then it would work. It would be possible, okay? But we're not going to see that. We're going to be dealing with the square root from here on, okay? Does that make sense? Did you guys hear Christian's question? So if it was like x to the 3rd power, do you guys agree I would take the cubed root of both sides? In that case, you're allowed to have a negative underneath, but we won't see that example, okay? What's up, Sophia? Go ahead. David? Go ahead. Yeah.
So you're saying that imaginary numbers will like be easy to come up with?
Don't worry about imaginary numbers.
Does it not contradict the mirror concept of math itself?
Don't worry about imaginary numbers yet, okay? Imaginary numbers, it's just represented by I, and it's the square root of -1. So it allows you to have answers that have I in them. And don't worry about it now. You'll learn that next year, okay? I promise. You just need to know why you're putting no real solution, okay? All right, one more example. Let's do letter B. In letter B, we have x squared minus 10 equals -10. What would you guys do in letter B? Karen? You would add 10. I would add 10 too. You're so good. What would you do after that?
Next, you would,
Well, excuse me. What would you get after that?
you would get x to square
Equals
equals 0.
0. Okay.
And technically you can stop there because it's only one solution.
What is my solution?
Like 0, x equals 0.
X equals 0. Very good. Okay. Now, let's say we didn't recognize that and you wanted to take the square root of both sides. I'll show you that you get the same answer. You would get x equals plus or minus 0, right? What's plus or minus 0? Just 0, okay? So we don't write the plus or minus for 0, because can 0 be positive and negative? No, it's just 0. Segi?
So we don't need to do all the other stuff as if we already know the answer?
Correct. X equals 0. Matthew?
The only time we do we square root both sides is when it's only x to the power of 2.
Yep. Because we have to get rid of that square root to find out what x is. Okay? I mean, we have to get rid of the exponent of 2. McCarvin?
The only time you put no real solution is if it's...
Correct. The only time you put no real solution is if your d value, the value on your right-hand side, is a negative value.
It was plus minus 9.
Was the answer to A x equals plus minus 9? No, it was plus minus 3, because the square root of 9 is 3. What's the catch? There is no catch. There's no catch. Yeah.
Wait, why do we get x squared in C but not x squared in B?
I'm confused.
Wait, why do we get x squared for the answer in C but not x squared for the answer in B?
We got x squared for both of them. We got x squared equals 0 here, which means x had to be equal to 0. And for C, we got x squared equals -1.
Wait, you said it was x equals 0 for B.
Yeah, because you can take the square root of 0. Alec, can you take the square root of -1 though?
No.
Okay, so that's why we got no real solution.
0? That is-
What's the square root of 0? What number times itself gives you 0?
Oh,
0 times 0 equals 0. So we do have a solution there.
that makes sense.
That makes sense? Okay, cool. Guys, your job is to do D, E, and F. Go. Okay, let's go over them. Letter D. Natalie?
My answer, I got x equals 5.
X equals 5? That is incorrect. Letter D. Addison?
X equals plus or minus.
Thank you. Positive and -5. Addison, can you walk me through what you did?
I divided both sides and removed the cube.
Uh-huh.
And then I got x squared equals 25 squared. Or plus.
Just 25, okay? Then what'd you do?
Wait, why would it be just 25?
Because all we're doing is dividing by -3. So -75 divided by -3 is just 25.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you square it, right?
No, you don't square it. What do we do at this point? Yeah?
You square both of them.
No, you don't square them, guys. Yeah?
You find the square root.
Very good. You take the square root of both sides. Guys, that's different. Squaring something is raising its exponent. Are we raising this guy's exponent? No, we're actually cutting in half, so we're taking the square root of it, okay? So we're taking the square root, and we always remember plus or minus, right? Okay, so what do I get?
X equals
Plus or minus 5. Guys, if you put +5 as your answer, please, please, please put a star next to this problem and tell yourself in your notes, hey, you forgot the plus or minus, okay? Because that's super important. Mia.
Are you always gonna put the plus and minus if it's not a 0 and it's not a negative?
Uh-huh. Yes.
For if the answer was 0, do you put
Plus or minus 0?
No, it has one real solution, and you just put has one solution.
You can just write x equals 0. If it asked you how many solutions it had, then you have to say one solution. Okay?
But I only put the real one if it's no solution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What questions do we have on letter D? E. What'd you get for E? AJ?
No real solution.
Very good. Can you walk me through it?
That's what we subtract 12.
Uh-huh.
That'd be x squared equals -2. You can't have a negative, so you can put a real solution.
Very good. When you try to take the square root of negative, you get no real solution. All right. Next one, letter F. Sophia Rada? X equals 0. How'd you get it?
Plus 15,
Mm-hmm.
and you get 4x is second equals 0. And then you divide it by 4 on the side, and you get x to the second equals 0.
Okay.
And then you do the root thing, and then you get x, and then you get 0.
Very good. X equals 0. All right. Here I zoomed out so you guys can copy down if you missed one. Mia, question?
Whenever you get the 0, isn't it just going to be x equals 0?
Correct. Mm-hmm. You don't physically need to take the square root of both sides, but if you want to and just to be consistent, you absolutely can. Okay? Talk to me. What other questions do we have? We're Gucci? Okay. The next part, all that changes... Karen, this is not the catch, okay? All that's changing is our base, okay? Now, remember, the base is part of what's being raised to the exponent. So we would consider x minus 1 as being part of our x squared term. Is there anything outside the square term right now that's going on?
No.
Is there anything to the left or anything to the right?
No.
So technically, step 1 is already done. It's already isolated. What do we do after it's isolated? What was step 2? Not, yeah?
You subtract 25 by 1. Wait.
No. What was step 2? Yeah.
You divide,
No? Yeah?
you take the square root of both sides.
Thank you, Karen. You take the square root of both sides. So we start by taking the square root of both sides. Because if we were to add 1, guys, the minus 1 is underneath the exponent. So you would have to add 1 after you foiled it. And we don't want to FOIL this out because that'll give us a B term, okay? So what we're going to do is just take the square root of both sides. So now the square root of x minus 1 squared, does anyone know what that is? X plus 1?
X.
It's just going to be x minus 1. Equals, what's the square root of 25? Plus or minus 5. Okay? Now, this one's a little bit different. We're going to have to split this up into how many equations? 2. One of my equations is going to be x minus 1 equals what? 5. And the other equation is going to be?
X minus 1 equals
-5. Okay? Because there's a positive 5 on the right-hand side and a negative 5 on the right-hand side. Talk to me. What questions do we have so far? None yet? Okay. So we're going to add 1. This is going to be 6. And then we're going to add 1 over here. And x is going to be? -4. How many solutions did I get? 2. I got 2 solutions because the 25 was positive. Okay? Andrea?
Why would it have to be x plus 1?
X plus 1?
Yeah, it's like x minus 1.
Because we had x minus 1 squared. If it was x plus 1 squared, then we would get x plus 1 when we take the square root. You can think about it, Andrea, as like this square root and this squared are just going to cancel out. So whatever your base was is going to be what your left-hand side is. Okay? Good question. What other questions do we have on this example? Guys, what do you think the most common mistake is for this type of problem?
Forgetting the plus and minus.
Forgetting the plus or minus, that's one of them.
Not splitting.
Kyra?
Splitting negative.
Where? What negative?
Like, they put like x plus 1.
Yes, a lot of people put x plus 1. A lot of people start this problem by adding 1 to both sides. You can't do that because the minus 1 is part of your base. You have to get rid of the square before you can add 1 to both sides. Are we clear on that? Okay, so let's take a look at B. Do I start by adding 7 to both sides? No. What do I do first? You take the square root. So I take the square root of both sides. Don't forget plus or minus. What's the square root of x plus 1 squared? Did I just say x plus 1? I meant x plus 7. It's x plus 7. You can go ahead, you can cancel these out if you want, so it doesn't confuse you. So I just have x plus 7 equals, what's the square root of 0? Is it plus or minus 0? No. How many solutions am I going to get here? 1. What is my solution? Negative 7. Why?
Wait, oh no.
McCarvin,
Wait,
there's
no, no, no.
definitely a solution here.
Never mind.
What's our solution?
X equals -7.
Now, how many solutions do I have? Just 1. Okay, how many solutions did I have in letter A? 2. Okay. All right, let's take a look at letter C. Now, guys, this is the important one. I cannot start this problem by taking the square root. Why not?
Because there's a
There's something on the outside. What do I need to do in order to get rid of what's on the outside?
You distribute.
You do not distribute here. Christian,
Like divide by 4?
you divide both sides by 4. Because, guys, you cannot distribute inside something that's being squared because you would have had to FOIL before you distribute. Understood? So we cannot distribute that 4 inside. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. What happens on the left? The 4's cancel out. So I have x minus 3. It's still being squared. Equals, does 4 go into 9? Evenly? No. So what are we going to do? Leave it as a fraction, okay? Now what do I do? You do. The square root. Very good. Why can I square root now? It was isolated. Very good. Don't forget your plus or minus. So these cancel out. We get x minus 3 equals?
3 over 2.
Hey, why 3 over 2, AJ?
The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 4 is 2.
Very good.
So I'm
3
about
over
to say,
2.
you split them up.
Mm-hmm. So if you've missed that, that was the square root of 9 over the square root of 4, which is 3 over 2. Talk to me. What questions do we have so far, Karen? No, you're good. Okay, am I done?
No.
Why not?
You got it. That's just minus 2.
You gotta get x by itself. So split it up. Very good. What's one of my equations?
X minus 3 equals -3 over 2.
X minus 3 equals, we'll do a positive one first, positive 3 over 2, and then we'll do the negative one. So x minus 3 equals negative 3 over 2. Should I be like stressing that I have fractions? No. Guys, we're gonna be good. Yeah.
Like, let's say on the test, can we just leave that plus minus 3 over 2? Like,
No. Because this side is not just x. If it was just x equals plus or minus 3 over 2, for sure. But we have x minus 3 equals plus or minus 3 over 2. Okay? What would you do to the equation on the left? How would you solve it? You would add 3 to both sides. I agree. But can I add 3 with 3 over 2?
No.
Not right now. So I'm going to write x equals 3 over 2 plus, what's 3 as a fraction? 3 over 1. Can I add them now? No, still not. Why not? They have to have a common denominator. Which one should I change so they're a common denominator? The second one. What can I do to get a common denominator? Multiply by 2. So multiply by 2 to the top and the bottom. This is going to be x equals 3 over 2 plus 6 over 2. Good, Matthew. What do I get when I add these? 9 over 4, right?
No, yeah.
No, what did I do wrong?
9 over 2. You don't add the denominator.
You don't add the denominators. Very good. 9 over 2. All right, people, you guys need the practice of the fractions. Please do the second one on your own. Try this best you can. The worst thing you can do is do what? Not try, okay? No, failing is good, okay? If you fail at this, I'm happy because then you learn from it, okay?
What if you fail and don't learn? Then it's failing good?
No, probably not.
What if you like fail a test?
So you add 3 and then it becomes -3 over 2 plus 3 over 1
X equals negative 3 over 2 plus 3 over 1. Okay, good.
Then you multiply the 3 over 1 by 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes negative 3 over 2 plus 6 over 2. And then you add them and you get x equals 3 over 2.
3 over 2. Guys, why does this, I saw this a lot. Why is this not negative 9 over 2?
Why is it not negative?
Why don't they subtract them? Or why didn't, what happened there? They added them instead of subtracted. Why aren't you supposed to add those two together? Why don't negative 3 and 6 get added together? They're different signs, so you subtract their values. So 6 minus 3 gives me what? 3. And it's positive 3 because which one was bigger? The 6, and the 6 was positive. Go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, I thought you were supposed to subtract. No,
Subtract what?
positive 3 over 2 minus 6 over 2.
Why are you doing minus 6 over 2?
Because that was the negative side.
The 3 was positive, right? We added 3 to both sides. That 3 changed into 6 over 2, and that was still the positive one. That 6 was the larger number, so then you just subtract 3 from it.
I put the negative from the original to the...
Oh, you put the negative on the other one? Okay, that happens. What other questions do we have on example C? All right, try D.
You didn't divide it?
You divide by 2 after you take the square root, because the 2 is inside the parentheses. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. What do I do to start this problem? Take the square root of both sides. Always add what to my square root? Plus or minus, okay? What happens with the square root on the left side? Cancels. It becomes 2x plus 1. You guys with me? What's the square root of the right side? Not 6. Plus or minus 6. Thank you very much. Did you split it up into 2 equations? It should have been 2x plus 1 equals 6. And 2x plus 1 equals negative 6. We Gucci? All right. What do I do on the left one? Subtract 1. What's 6 minus 1? So 2x equals 5. Divide by 2. X equals 5 over 2. Then we go to the next one. Subtract 1. 2x equals negative 7. X equals negative 7 over 2. Talk to me. What questions do we have? Casey? Never mind. Yeah, Christian.
So, like, when you get the 2x plus 1, I thought you had to put minus 1 on both sides so you understand the variables.
You do.
But, like, without the 2 equations.
No, split it up first. Because, right, if you're going to subtract 1 from negative and positive 6, wouldn't you need 2 equations to do that?
Yeah.
Okay? So once you get to here, you should be like, oh, I should have split it up first. Because I don't know how to subtract 1 from plus minus 6. Okay? Good question. Any other questions? No. Okay, our last section, people. What happens when it's not a perfect square on the right side? Okay? All we do is we use our knowledge from what lesson was before this one? 9.1. Good. So let's go ahead and start solving this. What would I do to solve this, people? Add 13 to both sides. What's 15 plus 13? 28. And I still have a 4x squared over here. What do you do next? No, not yet. No, don't take this square root yet. It's not isolated. Divide by 4. What's 28 divided by 4? 7. So x squared equals 7. Okay, can I take the square root now?
No.
What?
Yes, but you don't. Yeah, but yes, you can.
Wait, but what?
There is no
There is no square root of 7. So guess what? You still take the square root. Guys, you follow your steps. Did we isolate x squared? Yeah, so you have to take the square root of both sides. That square root needs what in front of it? Plus or minus. What's the square root of x squared? Do we know the square root of 7? No. Can you break it down?
Yes.
You can?
No, you can't.
You can break it down into what?
1 and 7.
1 and 7. Are either of those perfect squares?
No.
So do I care if I can break it down or not?
No.
No, so we're going to leave it as the square root of 7.
Why did you get rid of the plus?
Why did I get rid of the plus or minus? I didn't. Stay there.
No.
Wait, what? Thank you. Thank you.
You said you didn't give the plus or minus, but you did.
She asked, why did I get rid of the plus or minus? And I said I didn't get rid of it. It stayed in part of the solution. Okay? Talk to me. What questions? McCarvin, stop. Okay, letter B. What do I do in letter B? Addison? Minus 8, x squared equals 11. Is x squared isolated? Hey-yo, what do I do from there? Take the square root. Make sure my square root has what? Plus or minus. So x equals the square root of 11. Does that simplify? Does it break down? No. Are we done? Yeah.
I'm done this year.
With this class or with the problem? All right, how are we feeling?
Alright.
Talk to me. What questions do we have? So are we going to freak out when it's not a perfect square?
Yes. No.
Why? Okay,
Ask one more time.
one more, people. Let's do letter C. I love letter C, by the way. Put a star next to it, okay? So, what do I do in letter C? Add 2 to both sides, plus 2 plus 2. What do I get? 5x squared equals 2. Is my x squared isolated?
No, sir.
What do I still have to do? Divide by 5. Okay, does 5 go into 2? So what do? Leave it as a fraction. So it's going to be x squared equals 2 over 5. Is x squared isolated? Is x squared isolated? Is x squared isolated? Yes. How do you not know? Okay, look to the left. Is there anything on the left?
No.
Is there anything on the right?
No.
Okay, then it's isolated. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Cool. So if it's isolated, what do I do after it's isolated? Take the square root. Don't forget, plus or minus. What's the square root of x squared? X equals plus or minus the square root of 2 over 5. Can I leave that as my answer? Are you allowed to have a fraction underneath a radical? No. So let's break it up into what? The square root of 2 over the square root of 5.
25.
No, the square root of 5 is not 25. So what do I do if I have a radical in the denominator? Multiply by the square root of 5 and the square root of 5. What's the square root of 2 times the square root of 5? Can I multiply those? Yes?
Nice.
No. Well, can I or can I not? Why can't I? They're both under the square root. What's 2 times 5? 2 times 5. 10. And the square root of 5 times the square root of 5? Square root of 25, which is 5. Is this my answer? No. What did I forget? The plus or minus. That's my answer. So, people, are these problems step by step necessarily that difficult? No. Are there a lot of things to remember though? Yes. Okay? The only way we remember all of those things is by doing what? Practicing. So you have big ideas. It's due tomorrow. Turn these in.